Krishna says, Deha Britam Varaha, you are the best of the human beings around. Of all the people in the battlefield, you seem to be the better of the lot. Because you have right questions you're asking. Then Krishna says, fifth shloka, one more is left, no, one question is left unanswered. What is that? Prayana Kale, when end, how do we get to know if you? Now, all the other shlokas of this chapter is only the answer to this last question, seventh question. All the other things are concepts which have been cleared. If you want to read more about it, and these are Vedantic concepts, you can read Tattva Bodha, which has several of these concepts clearly explained. Meanwhile, I will go to the next thing, which is most important. Why beat around the bush? Come to the point, which is how do I save myself? Tell me who you are not, that is all secondary. How do I save myself? Tell me that. So that's the answer. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samshayaha. At the end, whoever remembers me while giving up this body, such a person, because he is continuously meditating on me, I am only feeling his entire being, such a person reaches me, there is no doubt about it, he says. Again, it's a reinforcement of what he said, a re-emphasis that you will reach. Now my whole question, our whole question should be, how do I attain that ability to think of him only at the last moment? Now you have the story of Jada Bharata, he was the king who gave up, as per the Shastras, took sannyasa at the end, was living in one Kanvarishi's ashram near Gandaki river, somewhere near Haridwar. And then what happened? He fell in for a small deer, which was an orphan, and then it started looking after it, and finally became so attached that one day deer disappeared. He was thinking, what would happen to the deer, whether some lion would have eaten it, and thinking like that, he died. So last moment thoughts were not of Shruti, Smriti, Purana, was a deer which ran away. And out of that moha he dies and was born as a deer again. This story is there in Bhagavatam. And when he is born, he realizes, Ayyo, I am that Bharata Muni, Bharata king, who is born as the deer again. What a he says, Aho kashtam brashtoham, he says. What a fate I have encountered because of my stupidity at the last moment of remembering the deer and not the divine. And so he's born. Then he spends rest of his life in the ashram of the Rishi, listens to Vedas, Shrutis. This time he's careful. I don't want to fail again. So he studies well, and then he clears the exam, but then again he has to go through human birth, because last stop is human. So he has regressed, now he has to progress again. So comes back as born as a human in a Brahman birth, but behaves as a fool. Why? Because he doesn't want to behave in an intelligent way, otherwise everybody will drag him. His father would want him to marry, so he didn't want to marry, so he behaved like a fool, so that nobody marries him. And people, but at the same time he gets a lot of ridicule and scolding. But at the end he's a jnani, and finally he redeems himself by the grace of God and never has to be born again. So that story of Jada Bharata should be a constant reminder that we can end up, we don't know. And Yamadamraja says to Nachiketa when he asks, he says, Yoni manye prapadyante sharirattvaya dehina sthanum manye anusayanti yatha karma yatha shrutam, he says Kathopanishad. One may be born in a different category of yonis. Yonis means different species. You can become any animal, like Jada Bharata became the deer. You can also become anything, That is one part of the danger, that from human birth you can slip back into some animal birth or even lower tree. Sthanu manya. Sthanu means which stays steady, doesn't move. What all does not move? Tree does not move. Stones don't move. These rocks and mountains don't move. You can even become that, he says. Ahilya became a stone, right? You can become that also, if you are not careful. What is the reason for that? Yatha karma, yatha shrutam. Whatever actions you undertake, remember, we create our own future and past, we create our own destiny by our actions. One. And shrutam, whatever we hear, because ear is the first point of entry for any thought, good or bad. So yatha karma, yatha shrutam. Whatever we have heard, learnt in our lives, and whatever we have done, that will decide where we are born again. So if you have done good things, and even though we could not remember God or remember the Brahman at the last moment, yet at least we will get a good birth. That's the only solace in this whole chapter and the previous chapter, that even if you have messed it up, don't worry, at least you'll be born in a decent family where you'll be able to continue your spiritual progress. He says, no, Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Brashto Vijayate. In good families, pure families, you may be born, even if you are Yoga Brashta. You deviated from the path, you didn't follow it all through. It's okay, you'll be born in a better family than before. So he says, none of these issues, none of your efforts will be wasted. This Krishna has assured us. That's the only consolation on this path. Because we all know that it's not easy to remain in that steady consciousness, that state. So what he says is that, but nevertheless, we must be prepared to leave our body, and when we leave our body, we should be able to realize the truth. How? As Krishna being the Supreme Brahman. Krishna is only a representative. You have to remember Supreme Brahman. Now what happens? He also continues to say, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajat tyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavita. Same concept. Whatever they think of at that moment, they will end up in that state in the next birth. So first thing, I want everybody to appreciate that we are very lucky to be born in India, because we know about rebirths. Most of the Western countries don't believe in reincarnation. In fact, I had a devotee who is a Jew. And he came for the first time to India and he said, I feel I've come here before. Everything feels familiar. The sound, the smell of the things and the colors, the place. I feel I've been here before. Then I told him, yes, you had been here before. You were born here before. He said, no, don't tell me that, because Jews are not born before. They are not supposed to be. I said, yeah, that is your philosophy. You follow that. It helps you to become good in this birth only. It's a good thing. Otherwise, you know how many chances I have to clear this exam? As per the Bhagavad Gita, infinite chances. You can keep failing forever and keep clearing. Is this a good news or a bad news is my question. A student who says, till how many attempts I can make to clear my 10th board exam? And if I tell you infinite attempts, till you are 100 years old, you can keep writing the exam. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? It's a bad thing, because you should be ready to clear it in the first attempt, if not second. So our birth and death stories of infinite, so to say, opportunities, but they are infinite, as I said, painful births and deaths. So what Krishna says that because at the last moment, whatever you think, that is what you will become. Therefore, how should I prepare myself so that I die correctly? In a way, this chapter tells us that all life is an effort and preparation to die correctly. Death is inevitable. Let us not shy away from discussing it. Why death? Why death? Death is the very vesture of life, is what they say. You know, we cannot escape that, push it under the carpet. It is true, and we have to know how to die correctly, because if we don't die rightly, we will be born again in a wrong way, and then we have to go through the whole nonsense again. So Krishna says, therefore what should I do? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu maam Anusmara yudhyacha mayarpita mano buddhi mamaivaishya sanchayaha. Very important shloka. This I repeat often during discourses also, which says, therefore what should do? All the time think of me. Because harati nimishad kala sarva, when death will come, we don't know. At that moment only you think of something, accidents happen like this only. You tell him, how did you meet with this accident? No, till then I was focusing on the car only. That moment only phone rang and accident happened. So that moment, a little distraction, and who knows, that time only was your last moment. So Parikshita had a date and time. 7 days from now, when Sangri will come and bite you, you will die. So what did Parikshita do? Order as many pizzas, ice creams, cakes and finish it before I die. No, he went and called on the great Brahma Gyani, Brahma Rishi, Shukamuni. He was 16-year-old. Shukamuni was just 16-year-old, naked saint, who had no idea of where the body is, what is happening. He was continuously immersed in the Brahman. So he seeks his refuge and seeks his guidance, and then Bhagavatam is told and all that. And he finally merges in the Lord, because till last moment he was thinking only of God and nothing else. Now imagine, we don't know what time the death is going to come. There's a beautiful poem. Pancha bhautikamu durbalamaimana kayambu eppudu vidichedo yerukaledu uuruno adivino udaka madhyambuno eppudu vidichedi yerukaledu. We don't know when we are going to give up this body. In the middle of a city, in a jungle, or in the middle of water. We do not know. And with COVID around, we just do not know what can happen at what moment. How many people lost their kith and kin without having thought that they will lose them. It was a shock to them. So that fragile a life is, which is made of these 5 elements. Don't be too sure that you will live forever. Count every moment as another moment, another blessing. That's why I tell every day you wake up, thank God that you have given me another day, because you trust me with your work. You trust that I will use it well. Therefore you have given me, please bless me that I use it well. And when we end the day and go to sleep, we must thank God again that I have spent the way hopefully as per your wishes. And if you think I must do something more for you, please wake me up tomorrow. So every day you wake up, remember God is remembering you. We don't want to do Suprabhatam, but God definitely remembers us first thing in the morning when we wake up, because He has woken us up. Had He been that whatever is Adi Atma, He left us, then we wouldn't be awake tomorrow morning. So He is the one who gives us this opportunity. Therefore He says all the time do the right thing. And the next line is very important. Mayarpita mano buddhi mame vaishya samshayaha, who has offered their mind and intellect to me, they will reach me. Because our mind and intellect are the reason why we keep distracting from this path. If we had no mind and no intelligence, we were completely immersed in God's intelligence and mind. Remember, Yached Vang Manasi Prajna Tadyached Jnanatmani. Katopnishat says, merge your lower senses and mind into higher mind of God. And live as if the way God would live. Be on an autopilot. Let your thought, actions, everything be guided and done by the divine. If you do that, where is the question of thinking of anything other than God? So how to achieve that? He says, you have to offer your mind and intellect to me. What does mind do? It thinks about various things. It gets attached to it or it gets afraid of things. And what does buddhi do? Buddhi analyzes, discriminates. So continuously discriminate. This is spiritual, this is not spiritual. This is godly, that is not godly. That is why Viveka, Vairagya, Shatsam, what you call Sadhana Chatushtaya, 4 kinds of things required are Viveka, Vairagya, Shatsampat, and then Mukshutvam. There are 4 things Shankaracharya says. This is Viveka Vairagya, Mana Buddhi. You should think and discriminate and detach. So Viveka will happen in Buddhi. Buddhi will say, this is not right. This is not going to help you remember God at the last moment. So don't do this. And Vairagya will come from the mind. Mind has to develop Vairagya. Oh yes, you think so? This is not the right thing to do? Okay, I shall not think about it anymore. See, that Viveka Vairagya partnership is mind-buddhi partnership. Viveka is from the buddhi, Vairagya from the mind, detaching. That's what attaching, detaching. And even in the Kathopanishad, when Nachiketa insists, tell me about that truth. I don't want the Swarga Loka and all that. Please tell me the truth. And how do I start on this path? First thing Yamadharmaraja says, instructions is Shreyascha Mayascha Manushya Metat Tav Samparitya Vivanakti Dhira Shreyo Hi Dhiro Bhi Preyoso Vridite Preyo Hi Mando Yoga Kshema Dhrudite. The good guy will always remember to choose the right over the pleasant. That is the idea. Start from now and start in every aspect. I am speaking to somebody. The way I am speaking, is this divine or is this very bad? It is not divine. The way I speak and behave with somebody, immediately develop Vairagya, cut off from that. And prepare yourself to speak in a way that will please God, because that is how all the time you can think of God. So it's possible or not, it is possible, because while walking we can also do talking. Walking is also happening, talking is also happening. Why? Because we have practiced walking so much that talking is natural. So how is your mind able to handle both? One is handling from the conscious mind, another is handling from the subconscious mind. So if you think of this idea of God too long, it will slip into your subconscious mind. Without you realizing, it will keep happening. How do you check? Suppose you get a bad dream. What do you shout and wake up? Are you up or somebody says, Sai Ram, they say. Or suddenly something shocking happens. The first word that comes out from our mouth is Sai Ram. Why? Because we have been thinking of Sai Ram so much, it's gone into our subconscious mind. And it should further go, because last moment when it comes, we do not know. So it should become a part of our consciousness, so that we immediately remember that only at all times, especially when Yama arrives to take us. That is the idea. Think of God so often, so long, so intensely that He becomes a part of your subconscious living, and further into your unconscious state also. You're in deep sleep also, the divine thoughts are always there. When you suddenly wake up from a very deep sleep, without going through all these REM cycles and all, you still be able to remember God. So that is the idea. You ask yourself, how often do you think of God even in a certain state of shock or sudden thing that happens to you? If that is the first thought that comes to you, God comes as the first thought, you know that you will be redeemed even at the last moment. Because what can be more shocking than that Bhayankara form of Yama arriving on his big buffalo? I hope he won't come. Devadutas will come and take us. But whatever it is, we must be ready. So he said, therefore, all the time you do, like Hanuman was going on snapping his finger because he did not know when Rama will yawn. And Rama was going on yawning because he did not want one snap also to be wasted. That's how we should think of God, and not less than that. So this is the idea. Ninth shloka, he explains how you should think of me. He says, Kavim, 8 qualities he tells. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyan Anusmaredya Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasas Pastat. He says, 8 things. Kavim, I am the all-knowing, omniscient, omnipresent, all-knowing Lord. Why? Because I am in everything. So I know everything, I know everyone. 2, Puranam, I am the oldest one. Nobody was there before me. Brahman, as Aitreya Upanishad says, he alone was. And he thought nobody knows that I am, so he thought of creation. So he alone was, he is the oldest. Anushasitaram, he is the disciplinarian. He is the lawgiver and also the law administrator. Lawgiver doesn't work, I have realized that. Now I become law administrator also. Why? Because you have to ensure it happens. That's why Upanishads say, no, Bhishasma dvatah pavate, Bhishodeti surya, Bhishmandrascha agnischa, Mrityurdhavati panchama. Out of his fear, what happens? Sun rises on time and sets on time. Wind blows, seasons change, fire burns, even death runs, and Indra does his job properly. When boss is in the office or the teacher is in the class, all the students behave. If he goes out of the class, everything is a chaos. Imagine so many planets, they don't bounce into each other, bump into each other. Leave the traffic without a signal and a traffic police and see what happens. Next moment you have plenty of accidents, traffic jam. Because by nature, mind is not disciplined. It needs disciplinarian. So God is the disciplinarian. How does he discipline us? Like they do bad karma, suffer because of that. That is the discipline approach, reward and punishment approach of karma, which God uses to discipline us. So he is Anushasitaram, Anoraniyan, he is the subtler than the subtlest. That's the biggest problem with God. If he was very gross, like Gulab Jamun, we could have easily enjoyed it. But he's so subtle, how to catch him? Because he said, no, we can't describe it, yato vachoni vartante aprapyo nasasa. We can't explain, I can't experience. The only way is to become him, to realize who he is. That is whole life's effort and lifetime's efforts. So, but anyway, we have to keep putting effort, that is the whole idea. He is the subtler than the subtlest, and for the science students, a simple thing. You break down everything. You break down a desk, not now, but what I mean is symbolically. You break down anything and finally reaches an atomic level. Break down the atom, subatomic particles will come, nucleus, proton, neutron, quarks, God particle, they talk of it now. Finally, you break down everything, what remains? Just space. But is that space empty is the question you have to ask. That space is not empty, it's filled with a force, what we call as unified field theory now. What is that force? There is electromagnetic force, there is gravitational force, there is a weak nuclear force, and there is a strong nuclear force. These forces keep the world together. Otherwise, we are all space. Just to give you symbolically what we are, if you think nucleus is a football kept here, the first electron will be found 15 kilometers away. And all that in between is just empty space. Still the electron doesn't come and fall into the nucleus doesn't come and bump into electron, nor any other electron bounces and bumps into each other, because of the forces that hold them at their place. That's why my finger doesn't go through this hand. Why? Because I have forces holding the atoms, which hold the molecules, which hold the whatever, and finally the whole flesh and bone, everything is like that. So this solid world is actually empty world. Solidness is our understanding, because we are experiencing the forces that keep things together. They don't let them fall apart, not they let them kind of clash into each other. That divinity is also he, Anoraniyan, smaller than, subtler than the atom, he exists. How? As that force of nature. Then, Sarvasya, how to think of Anusmaretyaha? How do you think of it? Anusmara means to remember continuously. How? Sarvasya dhataram, he is the bearer of everything. He is the substratum, he is the foundation on which everything exists. Manigada, Sutraihi Manigada, he said last time, like the string of that holds the pearls together. He alone holds the world. Just now I told, all these forces, if they are not balanced, what will happen? All atoms will bump into each other, they will merge, all spaces suppose disappear, we all will become one cube worth of matter will become. That's what they say. If you squeeze the whole of this world, it can fit into a cube. Actually, that is also not the truth, because even that matter does not exist. Just to give symbolically the idea of how much empty space is there. So he says, Dhataram Sarvasya, he holds everything. Achintya Rupam, but you cannot imagine a form for him. He is formless. Achintya, you can't even think of him. Because the moment you think, God is out. Thought disturbs God's presence. That's why Kathopanishad says, then when yada panchavitishtante, even buddhim tam na vicheshtate, even buddhi does not move, even this much disturbance is not there. That is the paramgating. Mana, buddhi, chitta, everything is absolutely steady. That is higher state, that is Brahman. So very difficult to imagine. The only way to know Brahman is to be Brahman. That is the only way. And then Aditya Varnam, he is the nature of like an effulgent sun. Aditya means sun. Diva means brightness, so Aditya is supremely bright. And Tamasa Parastat, he is beyond darkness. Naturally, does sun know anything about darkness? No, because he's always effulgent. So he's never knowing what is darkness. Likewise, this is Aditya Varnam. Two things we have to understand. Aditya Varnam, because it is effulgent, in its light everything else is seen. In the awareness given by Brahman, in that consciousness we become conscious of all this world. This is a deep concept. Paravidya people know this concept. Others can go and revise or learn from there. That it is only the consciousness which makes us experience the world, the good, bad, ugly. And that consciousness is like sun. Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nama vidyatho kutoyam agnihi tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam ida vibhati, says Mundaka Upanishad. When it shines, everything else shines in its light. And as it shines, so everything else shines. How do we see sun? By sun's own light. It's sun's light which enables us to see the sun. Like that, Brahman can be seen by Brahman only, in the sense, knowing Brahman is to be Brahman. Brahma Veda Brahmai Bhavati, or Prajnanam Brahma. This is the idea. And he says Tamasa Parasta. It's beyond darkness, because how can darkness touch something which is Svaprakasha, is always effulgent. So once you become Brahman, you become that Jnani for whom there is nothing called ignorance or darkness. These are the various qualities of Brahman, he explains. Like these, many explanations come in various Upanishads. But it's a joyful thing to read this, because those rishis got it right. See, Bhagavad Gita, so to say, is the essence of all the Upanishads. Upanishads were there before. And rishis got it right. This time Krishna is saying, so he knows he is the doer, he is the everything, so he knows he is telling. But rishis also had got it right in way back. All the qualities of Brahman, they had got it right. How? By being Brahman. They got it right by being Brahman. And finally he says at the 10th shloka, Prayana kare manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bhruvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak sa tam param purushamupaiti divyam. The one at the last moment who can keep his mind steady, and because of great bhakti towards me. Bhakti does not mean bhakti to Krishna. What is bhakti? Swaswarup anusandhanam. Shankaracharya says, to discover yourself is bhakti. To research and find out who you truly are is true bhakti, he says. So that kind of dedicated person, yoga balena chaiva, by the yoga of controlling all his senses and mind and buddhi, what does he do? Bhruvar madhye pranamavesha. He keeps his prana, all his energy, in between the two eyebrows. We remember that from the previous chapters also. And samyak, completely, not just partly, completely, and realizes, meditates on that Paramapurusha and realizes it. Now tell me, how many of us at the last moment when your throat is choking and back is aching, food is not digesting, and there are motions are not in control, how many of us will be able to hold the prana in the middle of our brows and think of that Parabrahman without any vagary in the mind? How many of us can do that? Tell me. Almost sounds impossible, right? Because how do we attain this? But there is a solution, we will reach that. He says, let me tell you a little more. Yadaksharam veda vido vadanti vishanti yadyatayo vitaragaha yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena pravakshi. Let me tell you about that great state for which sake all the people follow brahmacharya. Brahmacharya means they withdraw from all other activities of the senses. Brahmacharya does not mean only abstinence or from certain activities. It's complete control on all senses is brahmacharya, because you need all the attention and energy on Brahman. Brahmacharya. Charya means the one who resides or moves around in Brahman. For such a person, there is no place for anything else. There is no time for anything else. So they are in complete control of all their senses and completely focused on brahmacharya. Why do they do that? Because they want to reach this state at the end. Also what they do, yadyataha yo vitaraga, by efforts they have gotten rid of all attachments of the world. By effort, see, by just like that it won't drop. You have to put efforts to detach. Attaching is effortless, but detaching is an effort. And that effort you must put, he says. And yadaksharam veda vidovadanti, that akshara, that imperishable about which all the Vedas tell. Similar shloka comes in Kathopanishads also. Sarve veda yat padamamananti, tapamsi sarvani yat chayad vadanti, yat icchanto brahmacharyam charanti, tatte padam sangrahena bravimi om ityetat. He tells om is that state in Kathopanishad. Here he is telling, let me explain to you. And what he says, that state At the last moment, what the dying person is doing, Sarvadvarani Sanyamya, Manovridi Nirudhyacha, Murdhanyardhayatmanaha, Pranamastito Yoga Dharanam. He completely brings all his activities of the mind and buddhi to a cessation, complete stop. Samyam, all the indriyas, dwaras are there. All dwaras are closed. It means you are not simply eating till the last moment or listening to some nonsense or smelling or tasting and touching and seeing. None of this you are doing. Everything has come to complete stillness. And what else he do? Completely absorbs and meditates on that hridi. Hridi means core of your being, which is where we say Brahman resides. When we ask you, who are you? Where do you put your finger? I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. He simply says, I'm here. Why does this hand go unconsciously to that place? Because that's where God resides. That's our swabhava, adhyatma. That is the true nature. So we automatically say, whether you're man or woman, your hand goes here. So that is the idea, that you meditate on that place saying, God resides over here as the jivatma in me. Let me meditate on him. And then all your energy, you take it to your head. If you read Prashnopanishad, it says very clearly that when the prana leaves the body from the Brahmarandhra, which is on top, the chakra, sahasrara, you are liberated. Otherwise, you can leave from any other place on the way. That is not liberation at all. You get stuck there. So for those whom prana leaves from the bottom, because their chakras, only the bottom chakras are active. Food, ahara, nidra, bhaya, maituna chakras are active. So they leave from there. Many of these, when they die, they pass little motion or urine. That's the indication that their prana is left from down. Many people leave with mouth open. It means their prana is left from the mouth. Many keep their eyes open. It means the prana is left through the agnya. But many people are completely in stillness, absolutely no emotion. For them, the prana is left from Brahmarandhra. In fact, there are cases when they even mention, they feel a little blood, forms there because that energy cracks open the skull. So that kind of Brahma, you should attain that way. Liberation is what he is saying. So all those who are interested in dying correctly, they must pay attention to this. Because if you don't die right, you will be born wrong. Again, you will go through this whole chakra. So he says that is the kind of yoga dharanam that people do at the end. Who have put efforts all their lives. Not those who think somehow will manage in last moment. No, it won't happen.